Hello everyone, how's it going? It is Theonor as always, and a new short story came out just yesterday titled Dark Mirror. It is specifically a short story about Nathanos Blightcaller, the champion of Sylvanas Windrunner, set I think just before the events at the Broken Shore. Now I personally was always a fan of Nathanos' character, how little of it there was. I found his concept interesting, that of being the first and only non-elven ranger, and of course his devotion to Sylvanas. This short story, I guess you could say, gives greater insight into his character, since there wasn't really that much to him before, but also gives some insight into Sylvanas and their relationship. Now, I would say the thing I like most about this story is how close it sticks to the already established characteristics of Sylvanas and Nathanos. It develops them, but builds upon what is already there magnificently, and I honestly was afraid that it would not be the case when I first saw this story. Because Sylvanas has become such a popular character, and because people, let's be honest, don't really know that she's actually pretty evil, I was afraid that Blizzard would sort of reportray Sylvanas to better fit the image people had of her, rather than her actual lore, like what happened with Illidan and, to a lesser extent, with Turalyon. But I am very glad to say that this short story sticks very close to the aforementioned already established characters of Sylvanas and Nathanos. So would I recommend it? Well, yeah, it's just a short story. It only took me about 20 minutes or so to read it. Does it contribute in a major way to the story? Not particularly, although it does explain a few things, such as why Nathanos' appearance changed in Legion, and why he was standing around the Maristead in vanilla World of Warcraft. But it is, I thought, a fairly gripping read, very interesting, and definitely very well written. A good, solid addition to the Warcraft expanded universe. Now, on to spoilers. The main action of the short story is that Sylvanas is preparing a ritual to infuse Nathanos with greater durability, I guess you could say, to prevent the decay that comes with being undead. Nathanos has a few flashbacks of himself interacting with Sylvanas, one of them alongside his cousin, and he then agrees to the ritual. The ritual, however, requires a sacrifice of the aforementioned cousin, along with the Val'kyr performing it, and we get Nathanos' reaction to that. Honestly, the thing that surprised me the most about this comic was Sylvanas' implied feelings towards Nathanos. Now, for most of the comic, Sylvanas acts towards Nathanos pretty much how we've seen them so far, with the occasional banter, but nonetheless she's the one in charge and the one he is devoted to without question. However, at the end, the Dark Ranger that is walking with Nathanos implies that Sylvanas might have some deeper feelings for him. Now, I personally subscribe to the theory that the Nathanos-Sylvanas relationship was one-sided. It was just a professional relationship that maybe developed into a sort of crush on Nathanos' side. But I don't mind being wrong on this one. I think it's an interesting development to Sylvanas' character. Also, fun little tidbit that aforementioned Dark Ranger Anya, is also present at Vol'jin's funeral, and you can ask her why Nathanos looks different. She does not answer, but now we know, because of the ritual. There's lots of other little things that I liked. Firstly, the various mentions Nathanos and Sylvanas make during one of the flashbacks to elven politics, particularly to how Lor'themar dislikes Sylvanas' decision to train Nathanos, something which was actually referenced in previous lore. Maybe the only thing that could be said to contradict previous lore is that Nathanos thinks about a rumor that Kael'thas was romantically interested in Sylvanas, when in actuality the two were political rivals and despised each other. But again, it's presented as just a rumor, so that can be forgiven. It's also worth mentioning that the small talk, the small descriptions in the short story are really excellent in my opinion, and are worth the read alone as a lorehound, since again it references all that previous lore, such as Sylvanas' vanity while she was alive. Now we also get a hint of that vanity when she is undead, just to use an example. There's also an offhanded line by Nathanos that Lor'themar would make a better politician than a ranger, which you know how it turned out. I think it's a particularly interesting line since Lor'themar thought of himself as a poor politician and a far better ranger, so there's your irony. What is also worth discussing is Nathanos' cousin. Now, he is a character that only appears in this short story, and this is his first mention ever, and he also dies in this short story, obviously having an impact on Nathanos. I was often asked what I thought about these one-off characters that only appear in one piece of expanded universe lore, yet nonetheless have an impact. I think it's fine in this particular case, firstly because we have had very little insight into Nathanos' character before, and his cousin suits the purpose of developing him, I guess you could say. Secondly, unlike other expanded universe characters who are criticized because they don't appear later on in the game, well, Nathanos' cousin dies, so there's not much for him to appear in game. Thirdly, despite the fact that this is a pretty short story, and of course there is little space to develop the character, he's still interesting and developed enough in a way, and I like his interaction with Sylvanas and Nathanos again. So in conclusion, once again, I say that I like this particular short story, and I definitely recommend it. I may have given away the general plot, but like I said, my favorite part of it was the little stuff, the small pieces of dialogue and descriptions, rather than the overall story. So go read that. Leave any thoughts in the comments below, and other than that, I will see you all later. Bye.